Excited for this one, Jared and Roham. This is, I guess, exciting because a lot of people think NFTs are dead, and all three of us up here on stage would agree that they are very much not. However, you'll notice from the title we didn't use the term NFTs, but we've got two of the largest projects, I think, in the space, and excited to be up here with you guys. For background, I'm a former anchor at CNBC and Yahoo, turned Web3 media founder to try and figure out how we can use NFTs as memberships to unlock co-ownership between creators and their fans. But you guys have honestly paved the way, and your guys' projects actually inspired me to quit my old traditional media job to dive into Web3. So excited to have you guys up here. For those who don't know, maybe quickly, kind of each one of you could just talk about what Dapper Labs and Flow are all about, what Animoca Brands is all about. Rohan, we can start with you first.
Sure. For those of you that are new to Dapper Labs, we're the original creators of the NFT standard. Way back in 2017, we created CryptoKitties, which was one of the first NFT games. And then right now we run NBA Top Shot, NFL All Day, Disney Pinnacle, so projects with the world's top brands. And we're also bringing CryptoKitties back. So launching tomorrow on Telegram will be our new version of our game, which I'm happy to tell everybody about. 4 years ago, we built a blockchain called Flow. It is now fully separate and independent from Dapper Labs, but all of our projects run on top of it. And it's a blockchain built from the ground up for consumer crypto. It just completed its most major network upgrade just 2 weeks ago. And in the last 2 weeks, we've seen almost as many smart contracts deployed as in the entirety of the year prior. So it's a great time to check it out. Great time to jump in and see what consumer crypto is all about.
Yeah, it really triggered, I think, the mainstream storyline around NFTs, collectibles, twice, CryptoKitties and NBA Top Shot. It was a huge...
Third time's the charm.
It's 3 times the charm. We'll get into that. And then Jared at Animoca, one of the largest quote-unquote NFT Web3 collectible companies now. For those who don't know, and if you don't know how, but Animoca.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Zach. Jared, I'm the CFO at Animoca. Animoca is a global Web3 company with roots in Web3 gaming. We're one of the earliest Web3 gaming platforms and actually kind of got into the game at the same time that Roham and Dapper Labs. We were a very early investor in Dapper Labs as we saw CryptoKitties as a transformative technology that could be, moved into the gaming space. We are very focused on digital assets and digital collectibles. But Animoca also is a prolific investor in Web3. So we have a portfolio of over 500 companies in and around Web3 across all different verticals in Web3. And then we operate our own projects as well, launching tokens, advising on token launches, and large-scale trading for token projects. Probably the most relevant item for today's discussion is our Mochaverse platform. So this is a platform that we're building to tie together the entire Animoca ecosystem, including stuff you're doing on Flow and with Dapper Labs, to provide a sort of digital ID and reputation layer to Web3. Then we can talk more about that, Zach.
Yeah, no, I think it's exciting. And obviously, like I said, all of these projects are somewhat now interwoven. But to start, Roham, since you've been through this, as you said, third time's the charm, having seen the evolution of this space, the title is Why We're Still Bullish on Consumer Crypto. I was joking around before that it could also be NFTs are cool as long as you don't call them NFTs. And it's kind of weird for the industry to reach this point where we are abstracting away everything that kind of makes us unique, but maybe necessary if you want to drive that next evolution of consumer adoption. So how do you look at that in terms of abstracting away what you've done with NBA Top Shot, what you're now doing again with the NFL and the WNBA? How do you look at maybe putting NFTs on the backside?
Well, I think the future of consumer is crypto, period. And I think products that people will expect to use, whether it's a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, will have greater ownership for the people that use them. They'll bring value to the people that contribute value to the network. And yes, they'll do that through the mechanism of fungible and non-fungible tokens. But that's the technology underlayer. No one talks about whether the file is HTML or JavaScript, or at least the users don't, the developers do. And I think we've had this perspective though from day one. I mean, even CryptoKitties, we went a long way to try and make it appeal to mainstream consumers. Now, you had to have a wallet, you had to have this and that. And then with NBA Top Shot, we abstracted those layers away and got to nearly $2 billion of transaction volume because of it. But almost like in a closed environment. And I think now in 2024 is the first time where someone can try and build a mainstream product, million DAU, et cetera, and have it be in an open environment where anybody from any ecosystem can build on top. And so when we're looking at, for example, the new sports seasons, NFL that just kicked off, NBA it's about to start, because of flows today, the EVM equivalents, we can have hundreds of thousands of developers building on top of these IPs, building more utility value for our users. And so that gives our product a new chance to get into the next level. And so we're taking this approach with the new products we're building, CryptoKitties and others. And that, like, the moment that we've been waiting for since I started the company 7 years ago, is a moment where the infrastructure is ready for consumer developers to build apps that normal people can use without needing to worry about, hey, what's the underlying technology? And I think now's the first time where that's actually been possible.
Yeah, and I guess at Animoca too, Jared, when it comes to the growth of it all, CryptoKitties, obviously very much your own project when it was launched from the ground up to show how it could be done. And then the partnerships with the NBA, kind of bringing and leveraging an existing fan base that is pretty large and pretty rabid. But with what you guys are building at Mochaverse right now, also very excited to see the network effects of launching your own token that kind of brings people into the ecosystem to build alongside you guys. What's kind of the way that projects or builders in this space should look at that in terms of also throwing gasoline on a fire that maybe you don't need to partner with established projects? You can also keep doing it from the ground up.
Yeah. Well, first, I was very pleasantly surprised to hear you're a Mocha NFT holder.
Yes. Well, Coinage is, I should say. Our DAO owns a Mochaverse NFT.
Yeah, that was great. And you're hopefully benefiting from all the rewards of being a Mocha NFT holder. So yes, we see this ecosystem as a way to sort of build from the ground up. I think a lot of what Roham is talking about as far as abstracting away from the user interface, let's be honest, the Web3 user interface is still a mess. It's not great. The average person doesn't really have good access to really get into Web3 without thinking about it too much or having to worry about a seed phrase somewhere. And that will ultimately get solved in the future. So in the meantime, we're trying to build an ecosystem that brings on more and more consumer-based applications. That's really important because the way Web3 is kind of developed is almost like if you took the sort of the U.S. building the national highway system in the 50s, but there weren't any cars invented at the time. So there's all these roads, but no one is there to drive on them. And right now we have something like, 1,000 L1, L2s out there, but there still aren't a ton of people in Web3. So we have a very broad infrastructure layer, but we really need to work on bringing the consumer-related IP, games, applications. We happen to think that gaming is a very important vector for bringing those users on board. There are over 1 billion gamers in the world. All of them use digital assets and are very comfortable with digital assets. We just need to find a way to help them onboard in a much easier way into Web3. And Mochaverse is a way to showcase what all of the different consumer applications that Animoca represents are and how they can be used.
I don't want to butcher your metaphor here, but I almost feel like if the cars haven't been built yet, you've got a regulator here in the U.S. who's saying airbags are securities as well, if that metaphor makes any sense.
Good.
But as someone who's building here in the U.S. too, you mentioned Coinage, and as a DAO, it took us a while to figure it out, but we'll be able to pay dividends back, and the Mochaverse NFT is up, so that appreciates to our NFT holders, which is great. But Roham, you obviously also kind of had to build along regulators and figure it out and get things right here in the U.S., and now you've done that, and I feel like you're kind of a unique project in that you've built that here and settled it. I mean, how frustrating is that to be a builder in this space, having to deal with that question in the U.S., and how much have you learned now, I guess, if it's fair to say, solving it?
Well, I don't think any of us have solved anything in that field yet. But look, I think that there's the confluence of factors are coming about where lawmakers and the industry are finally talking. And I think there are lawmakers in DC right now that are open to and are working on legislation that brings clarity to, frankly, laws that were made nearly 100 years ago for an industry that didn't exist yet. And so we don't think regulation by enforcement is working. We don't think it's good for the consumer. We don't think it's good for the American innovation machine. Dapper Labs is a Canadian company, so we have the choice to not serve the U.S., but we're here. All our partners are in the U.S. Most of our biggest users are in the U.S., and I think that America is where the next leg of this consumer revolution needs to happen. And so we've been very engaged with lawmakers, trying to help bring clarity to uses of crypto outside of currency, and the realization that all this is just an evolution of where software can run. And in fact, the software running in the open is actually better for regulators because they have transparency and auditability, better for governments because everything is open and they can kind of track every level, every transaction. It's not a dark kind of web environment. In fact, it brings light into everything. And it's better for innovation because developers can build without these gatekeepers, which are now otherwise, the most valuable companies in the world. And with the power of AI, et cetera, only getting more and more powerful. So we're trying to tell the story of crypto beyond currency because it is a counterweight force to the centralizing forces that we see creating problems at every level of society. And you might have seen the New Frontiers in Technology Act introduced just a week and a half ago. The NFT Act. Finally, we're trying to take that word, NFT, and apply it to, positive, forward-looking momentum in trying to bring clarity to crypto. And I think clarity is all we need. We're not asking for a carte blanche. The industry has never been, at least in America, there's a lot of good actors that the current regulators are sort of bringing under scrutiny, whereas they should be looking at the more obvious kind of scams and misuses of the technology, which, to be fair, do exist.
Yeah.
But I think there's so much positivity possible here, and so much, every time that development and kind of innovation has been democratized, as in it's been made easier for people to participate, you've seen a huge boost in consumer surplus and producer surplus. You have kids making more money, and you have consumers keeping more of the value that they earn. And so I think it's a no-brainer that at some point regulators and governments will understand that.
Yeah.
And then they'll kind of jump on board. But it's no surprise it's taken some time.
It has taken some time, and I feel like from a regulatory perspective too, Jared, we kind of glossed over the number there, but you said $2 billion with a B dollars in terms of transactions that have we're talking about in Dapper and Flow. And Jared, on the Animoca side, I think the number that I last saw was closer to like $6 billion in terms of your valuation as you're looking at kind of where to take this company. And there's not a lot of IPO discussions in Web3, or certainly not in NFT land. But when it comes to the regulatory aspect, it's not just regulators you need to explain this technology to, but it's also investors and anyone trying to get into this space. You're the CFO of perhaps the biggest and most pioneering Web3 company when it comes to NFTs that's looking at an IPO. How hard is that for you?
Yeah, no pressure. No pressure, huh? It is not easy. I will say that just a commentary on the regulatory points and to the first part of your question, Zach. As an American who's now based in Hong Kong, primarily working on applications that interface with Asian and European customers, we really don't penetrate into the US or make attempts to. It is frustrating to sit outside as an American and not see us competing very well on the international stage. I think there's also an element of being in the US, like anywhere else, you kind of sit in a bubble and you think that maybe crypto is only used by, the top 1% of people, and it's something that all of us here get together and talk about at conferences. But outside of the US, you look at what's happening in Korea or in Southeast Asia, Philippines, Vietnam, et cetera. There is a multi-class, multicultural, multi-wealth user base out there, and the US is missing out on that dramatically. So it's really frustrating to see. But, Animoca stands ready to work with the U.S. When it is looking to open up and make changes. As far as communicating with investors, it's a long path to sort of get there.
Yeah.
We're really excited to see that institutions are coming into the space. So one of the things that, we've seen is there has been a large proliferation of altcoins in the past 6 to 12 months. So Pump.Fund, we were talking about, something like 2 million tokens have been launched on Pump.Fund in like the last 6 months. Don't quote me on those numbers, but ballpark. Institutions are coming in a big way. So Bitcoin ETF, ETH ETF really opens the doors for people to get access to these two primary sort of foundational tokens. But then there's the entire altcoin ecosystem, which is still very difficult for users to try to navigate, institutions try to navigate 2 million plus tokens. And for a company like Animoca, we are really a good proxy for institutions to get access to that universe because we are operating in and around altcoins all day, every day. And so as more and more institutions come on board, I think we're going to be a good way to help those institutions.
Well, for the last 5 minutes of our panel, I guess, bringing it back to the title, why we're still bullish on consumer crypto. I think we all agreed from the beginning that we are. But to end this up and to, I guess, send people on their merry way for the rest of the conference, Roham, maybe your top reasons as to why you personally are still bullish on consumer crypto when you look at the space. And it doesn't need to be Dapper or Flow related, by the way. I think sometimes we get so lost in the sauce of what we're individually working on. But when you step back and think about it, it was encouraging last week to see senators on both sides of the aisle talking about, hey, this is kind of absurd if we're going to block people from even owning collectibles when there's so much demand for it. So why are you still so bullish on consumer crypto?
Yeah, I mean, the regular stuff will get solved. I don't know when, but that, I think the cat's out of the bag with the ETF, et cetera. Crypto's not going anywhere. For me, it's always been the readiness of the technology. When the platform is in place to let devs do something, it's inevitable. They'll do it eventually. But the thing that's made me really bullish in the last 6 months, that it's going to happen kind of imminently, is the growth you see on the Telegram. So this industry has lacked its own sort of native distribution method, and you kind of, we all use X. I guess that's become the unofficial kind of crypto distribution method. But the power you're seeing, and this is also relevant to your points outside of the US, the meme for crypto for the last 10 years has been kind of the institutions are coming, right? And they're going to kind of buy our bags. And that's partially true. They are coming, and it's more and more an accepted sort of asset category, et cetera. But I get more excited about retail coming. The masses, the mainstream is coming. And I think they're going to have a very different play profile. They're going to have a very different engagement profile. And to start, they'll just play these simple games that maybe are actually play to earn or play to kind of extract value, in the sense you're talking about people in low-income countries that are spending their time in order to make a little bit of money. And then some on the other side are gamers that are spending money in order to sort of get status and enjoyment and things like that. And I think for the first time, you actually have a native distribution platform for all this, which has 1 billion daily active users and is actually opening up its platform so you can do pretty interesting things as a crypto product. Now, some of those interesting things are blocked in the US, which is why all of you should be writing your congressmen and senators saying, hey, what the hell, I want to play this game, and I'm actually being blocked from economic opportunity, both as a developer and a consumer. But I think that when you have that native distribution platform in place, it's silly not to use it. So tomorrow, you guys should all go to CryptoKitties.com. You'll see the new version of the CryptoKitties game. It's going to be on Telegram. It's got its own sort of growth loops built in. The version tomorrow is sort of an early build, but we're calling it a play to egg drop game. There'll be fun surprises in the next few months. And we're really kind of leaning in, putting our money where our mouth is in terms of crypto being A, ready for mass distribution, but B, kind of we're putting the pieces together, what we've seen with Hamster Combat and other interesting games in a way that I think will, like I said, third time will be the charm. So
I respect a good plug to wrap up a panel here. So yeah, check out CryptoKitties there. Shout out to Roham for that one. Jared, as we wrap up, your reasons for being bullish too, because I feel like once you introduce a token, like you said, there's a lot of them out there. I don't know how many of the ones, the 2 millions that have been launched this year, are still in the green from Pump.Fun. Now you got the Mocha token out there. I mean, is your reason to be bullish? And I can already assume your answer is going to be not just number go up, but what has you, I guess, excited about still being bullish?
Yeah, I think ultimately we're obviously number goes up is good. Ultimately, we're very bullish about just if you look at the amount of attention that the large Web 2 conglomerates have, Apple, Facebook, Google, you name it, and how much that they are capturing and taking from creators and users on those platforms without anybody really even sort of allowing that. I think there's so much disintermediation to happen. And when real users of Web3 technology can truly see that by creating in Web3 or by participating in Web3, so much more of the value accrues to them than it does the platforms. And given the disparity between the large Web 2 conglomerates and where Web 3 is today, we are very early, but that tide will certainly shift. And so it's just a matter of time. And I think we all have to do the hard work of creating those, easy, fun, engaging applications to make that shift happen. But it's only a matter of time, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, it's exciting to be up here with you guys talking about it. For Roham, for Jared, for myself. Thank you guys for joining us. Appreciate you joining us up here. Thank you.